Welcome on into another episode of Golf on Tap. Today we'll be breaking down the Shriners Children's Open and the Zozo Championship from the past 2 weeks as the PGA Tour is off this week with 3 more events left before the conclusion of the fall swing, the FedEx Cup Fall Series. Thank you all again for joining us on another episode. Make sure to go and jump into the YouTube stream of this video so you can comment down below and interact with us as always. I'm Jack Bushman here with my co-host, Joey Ricotta. You can find him on Twitter at Joey Knows Nothing. You can find yours truly at Jack Bushman2. Joey, we're back, although we're not going to be talking about any bets this week as the PGA Tour has a little bit of a week off before the Worldwide Technology Championship down in Cabo San Lucas next week. So a little bit of a different vibe to this show today here, but just kind of breaking down the last couple of weeks, getting all caught up with everything that's been happening and a few other things in the world of golf. But before we do so, my friend, how you doing today?
Yeah, brother, I'm doing good. It's good to see your face again. It's been a couple of weeks here. It's been a little too long, I feel like, but yeah, it's a little different. We got a natural kind of flowing vibe, I think, this week where we can just kind of talk back and forth about some different hot golf topics and breaking down the past 2 tournaments that were, and one of them which you were at. So that's pretty cool. And I will say, though, I do want to recap some of the bets that we made, which, of course, we will do. So even though we won't be talking about future bet, well, I'll tease that for later as well. We will have some sort of betting content within this show as it is. But, yeah, man, how are you doing after quite the trip you made to Vegas a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was a spectacular trip, but it has been a little bit of a whirlwind for your boy recently, Joey, between going out to Vegas for the Shriners Children's Open. I was also in St. Louis this past weekend. Earlier in September, I was in Kansas City for a wedding, had a bachelor party in Wisconsin. So I've kind of been all over the map the past month or two. So kind of nice having a little bit of an off week here, but anytime you can get out of the cold, miserable fall weather. Actually, we're pretty nice here in the Chicagoland area. It's been rainy today, but weather back up into the 70s before. It looks like it's going to be dropping down a little bit. But anytime you get a chance to get out of this gloomy Chicago weather and get to go out west into the sun, it was an opportunity that I absolutely had to take and definitely enjoyed myself being out there, being credentialed for the Shriners Children's Open at TPC Summerlin, man. What a just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous track that is, and just very blessed to have been able to go and check it out, man. It was a spectacular event from start to finish.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time. We were talking a little bit even pre-show here about some of the stuff that you were able to do and things you were able to see. But what's one story that you might have from the tournament that really kind of stands out, or maybe it's a storyline, something that you saw in person from that weekend?
Yeah, I would have to say the coolest thing about the week, and trust me, there were many. We'll probably talk about a good handful of them here for the first part of today's show. But I think Lexi Thompson getting the sponsors exemption and becoming the 7th woman to ever tee it up in a PGA Tour event, and seeing the following that she had, she definitely had the biggest gallery all week long, even compared to Tom Kim and some of the other folks that were in contention coming down the stretch on Sunday. They really didn't touch the gallery that Lexi Thompson had as she was making a little bit of a push towards the cut line there on Friday. And she handled her own out there, man, at TPC Summerlin. There were plenty of guys that I bet that performed a whole heck of a lot worse than Lexi Thompson. Mr. Adam Schenk absolutely played like a scrub. Mark Hubbard, Andrew Putnam, basically everyone that I bet aside from JT Poston played like dog water. But Lexi made it interesting, and she added that kind of sparkle and shine to a fall series event that, quite honestly, not that many people are interested in turning on a FedEx Cup Fall Series event on Thursday or Friday. They really don't care this time of the year with the lack of star power in the fields. Most folks don't really care. I'm not speaking for everyone, including myself, but most folks don't really care to tune into that. But Lexi Thompson making a charge for the cut line was certainly a reason for folks to turn golf onto their television, and that's what we need more of on the PGA Tour. So I thought it was a perfectly well-executed sponsors exemption, and I think it's something that hopefully we only get to see more of on the PGA Tour, just more things like that draw attention and make people want to watch this sport. It's undoubtedly a good idea, but it was cool to watch Lexi and her following, and She did sadly kind of, I was following her on the back nine. She did blow up. It was starting at the par 3 fifth. She actually hit it into the desert and made the correct choice to go back to the fairway and drop for her third. Ended up getting up and down for bogey, but wasn't really able to get back on stride in those last couple of holes, and wound up making par on the par 5 ninth to kind of put the nail in the coffin in terms of her chances. But I mentioned to you off air, Joey, it was probably better that she missed the cut that way, because had she actually ended up finishing at 2 under, which was plausible when she got to the 6 tee box, she would have, the cut line ended up moving to -3. So it would have been a little bit more of a heartbreak for Lexi, I think. But one way or the other, it was a spectacular performance, and she made the most out of it, and hopefully just, kind of laying the woodwork for other women from the LPGA Tour to tee it up with the boys on the PGA Tour. So I thought that was probably my favorite storyline. There were a lot of cool things, man. I really enjoyed just kind of the vibe of a fall swing event in Las Vegas. The first event that I was credentialed to was the BMW Championship at Olympia Fields, and that's a playoff event, has the top 50 guys in it, and the fans were just rowdy, rambunctious. They were everywhere, and it was just a little bit difficult to get around and just utter chaos, quite honestly. And this event more so just had that laid back feel, like you're walking around. There was one point on Friday, Joey, where I was following Adam Schenk, and I was one of 3 or 4 people following Adam Schenk. It was literally just like me, Adam Schenk, and this group just walking the back nine. It was really cool and peaceful how kind of, I don't want to say private it was, but it almost gave that like kind of private type of feel, because there really weren't all that many people around. So a lot
Golf
of cool
lessons with Shank.
Yeah, basically, except he didn't want to take his lessons from his first 2 rounds. Did not play all that well, but the scenery, the backdrops, man, the mountains, just absolutely breathtaking. And the grass, man, just like all the grass around the fairways that we talked about, how the rough really isn't all that penal, just like soft, high sitting Bermuda grass was just so comfy to sit on anywhere you could find around the course. There were also a bunch of like rocks where you can go and sit around the putting greens. Just a really well kept desert type of track. And after seeing desert golf for the first time, I don't have very many experiences, but I got to say it's probably hard to beat desert golf with the temperature and the weather, and just also how far the ball travels. These guys were absolutely mashing out there. It was fun to watch, and yeah, just super awesome to be out there, man. So one more time, thank you again to the folks at TPC Summerlin and the folks running the Shriners Children's Open for having your boy out there. Hopefully I'll be able to make the return to TPC Summerlin next year. But yeah, it was a really cool tournament, man. Unfortunately, though, my dumbass, after Tom Kim won me the money to get there this year, I ended up not going back on him, man. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah, it sounds like you had a great time. It's cool to hear. I think, it sounds like you also didn't need a lawn chair, and you were getting ready to maybe just set out the old blanket picnic with the grass there. So that's good. Sounds like it was comfy.
Dude, and it was needed too. Your boy walked 30 miles in 4 days. So
yeah,
anytime I could give the dogs a little bit of a break and go in and sit on that grass around the greens, I was taking that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a lot of walking, man. 30 miles, and that's not an easy task to cover that course from what it sounds like. So very spacious, and
yes,
it's awesome. Like you have that you were able to kind of get more hands-on, it seems like, or more like kind of the intimate feel of not having as much of a crowd there as you did with, from the Chicago tournament. I'm calling it the Chicago tournament, but we know with the BMW Championship, with Olympia Fields, because totally different. You obviously the field is a little bit lesser, and like even you said, from that tournament, if you didn't really care too much about golf and you weren't credentialed for it, which you do care a ton about golf and you were credentialed for it, you probably, you can understand why people weren't super into that tournament. Not as much people showed up. And plus this year for the Shriners Children's Open, it wasn't the craziest field, and even in comparison to like last year's field, and we had talked about it heading into the tournament, but last year's field was way better than this year. And yeah, you talked about Tom Kim a little bit. I was lucky enough to kind of bang with Tom Kim, the 12-1, but I really, really, really was rooting for Adam Hadwin.
Oh, I forgot you had Hadwin too.
45-1, and Hadwin, I think it was either the 15th or the 16th hole.
I was watching.
It was
16.
It was 16. Okay, yeah. It was so Kim, I think he had a bogey, right? Or he had an opportunity for another birdie later, 17th or 18th hole. I can't remember, but he basically, if Hadwin wouldn't have messed up so bad on the 16th, would have played himself into that position for the playoff. And that really just kind of stung me. I'll take the W, don't get me wrong, but the payout is different, you know?
So for those of you who may have forgotten or didn't tune into the final round of the Shriners Children's Open, it was actually a chaotic leaderboard there. And similar to the Sanderson Farms the week before, you even texted me. You were like, we're at that point again where no one wants to win this fucking golf tournament.
It felt that way.
Dude, so 4 people finished at 18 under, another 6 finished at 17 under. Adam Hadwin, runner-up, finished at 19, and Tom Kim finished as the winner at -20 to go back-to-back. But you referenced Adam Hadwin and Tom Kim were in that final pairing. You had both of them. What happened was Adam Hadwin on his approach shot on 16, it's a par 5, little bit of a dog leg, and it's got water on the front right side of the green. So if you get aggressive, you have to carry it over that water. Hadwin hit an absolute banana peeler of a hook into the water, ended up making bogey, I believe, but it didn't kill him as badly as it could have because Tom Kim reached into, but he ended up 3-jacking it for a par. So Hadwin was down 2 with 2 holes to go, still not an ideal situation. And kind of, I was actually green side on the 18th when Tom Kim won and lagged that putt up and won the tournament to be the defending back-to-back champion, but Hadwin made like a 25-30 footer for birdie on the 18th to finish at 19. I'm like, oh my God.
That's what killed me. That's what it was.
If he just parred the 16th, he would have been in a playoff.
Oh, that's what it was. I couldn't remember if it was Kim that bogeyed or if it was no, it was the birdie at the end from Hadwin that pulled him so close.
That putt, though, I will say, Mr. Hadwin won himself some moolah with that putt, Joey.
Oh,
making birdie on the last to, instead of finishing T2, a 5-way tie, solo second, won him $484,000 by making birdie on the last. $500,000, baby. Big birdie putt for Mr. Adam Hadwin, unfortunately, didn't lead to the larger payout for you. But I got to talk about the 16th hole as well. This was something I definitely wanted to mention on the show. One of my definitely least favorite, probably my actual least favorite part of the entire week, but a cool little interaction moment. So JT Poston tied for the lead, shot 8 under on the opening day in the wind, was a very impressive first day. On Saturday, he's coming down the back 9, having a really solid afternoon. He's tied for the lead going to the par 5 16th. First shot hits it a little bit right, and quite honestly, being in the position that he was in, he probably shouldn't have got as aggressive as he did. And he tried to carry his approach shot onto the green to get there in 2 and wound up coming up short by literally just a couple of yards. So hit it into the water, and now he's laying where he has to drop it to for 4 and has to get up and down to save par. I'm literally right behind him, Joey. I'll send you the video of this. I am 3 feet behind JT Poston. He fucking duffs his chip shot back into the water, Joey.
No.
Back into the water. He makes an 8, Joey. He makes a fucking 8 at the par 5 16th and goes from tied to the lead to 3 shots back. Immediately after he duffs it into the water, he's walking away, slams his club into the ground, goes, fuck. His caddy, Aaron Fleener, comes walking by. He's dropping a bunch of F-bombs. And I've been following JT Poston. I followed him for a majority of the tournament. His wife was out there for all 4 of those days. So it was kind of cool, like walking alongside her and all this stuff. And I felt awkward. I couldn't imagine of how awkward she must have felt standing right behind her husband, watching him hit it into the water and absolutely blowing up twice with like a decent group of like semi-rowdy people following and just like people not knowing that his wife's there and just like saying things, be like, how the fuck did he do that? And this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an absolute scene. And then Joey, I go on to follow JT Poston on Sunday. He birdies 1, birdies 2, goes on to par 15 of his next 16 holes. The only hole that he didn't par the rest of the way, Joey, was the par 5 16th, and guess what he made on it? He made a 3. On Saturday on the 16th, he made an 8. On Sunday, he made a 3.
How do you explain that?
Wound up losing the tournament by 3 strokes. Cost him the
correction that he made, though, on that hole. That's big.
It gave him life down the stretch. I knew he had to birdie 17 and 18 to get in, and I'm not kidding. Not only did he miss the putts on 17 and 18 by an inch, there were probably 7 or 8 putts on Sunday that JT Poston missed by literally half an inch. It just wasn't meant to be, man. And I really wish it would have, because I would have come back to Chicago with a whole lot of money. A pretty frustrating finish for Mr. Poston.
Yeah, that sucks, man. Hearing that, though, I kind of wonder, though, too, like, I'm sure the wives, they go to so many different tournaments, and they probably hear a lot, though, right?
Oh, big time.
That kind of sucks for them. Maybe that's why some of them don't want to go to especially every single tournament, because
the bigger ones for sure.
And bigger ones can be even more traumatic, right? Like,
people are just crazier, and when they're crazier, they're assholes. They don't care what they say or who's around,
Oh no, and they're drunk and just throwing things. Like if you're at the Waste Management, for example, like imagine being a wife at that one. Like we don't have to imagine being wives, but like I'm just saying.
I don't.
Yeah, right. So I don't know, man. That really sucks for JT. I know you were high on him going into the tournament, and then watching the meltdown on that one hole, and then getting a 3 the next time, it was on the final day, right? He had 3.
Yeah, went from an 8 to a 3 on the 16th, man.
How do you explain that? So did he was he less aggressive on the last one? I don't remember. Like
no, he was
more aggressive.
He had to get aggressive. He was at that point where he was down 3 with 3 holes to go. It was sack up time. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday. You got to go for this green and 2. And he actually stuck it to like 4 feet and then made it for eagle to get some life. But yeah, man, just came up a little bit empty. But yeah, that was a cool part about this tournament too, was seeing kind of Adam Svensson's parents were out there. I was on Svensson. Eric Cole's parents were for sure out there as well. You could kind of tell that this was more so an event, and being Vegas. I mean, who doesn't want to come out to Vegas?
Oh yeah, take the family out.
Yeah, the one tournament in Las Vegas a year. I'm sure it's an easy one for the wives and the fiancés and all the family to come out for. So that was a cool part of it too. But yeah, it would have been a whole slam dunk of a week if JT Poston wound up getting the win. I got a couple of things I do want to talk to you about before we do move on, though. One thing, congratulations on the win on Tommy Kim. I do feel like an absolute bonehead for not running him back, especially when he really popped in the models. Letty F Baby in his final round shot 9 under, which was gosh darn impressive. Just another like quiet high end finish for Letty. And
T13 that.
Yeah, he ended up finishing like T11, T something like that. But it feels like even when he doesn't have his best stuff, he's still capable of finishing right at the top of the leaderboard. So that was impressive. Eric Cole, though, man, we'll talk about him more in the Zozo here in a second. I guess we could just kind of get to it now. He finished T3 at the Shriners and then wound up finishing T2 at the Zozo. At TPC Summerlin, had a 9 under day, and he also had a putt on the last, like a 12-footer for birdie, that if he made it, he would have gotten to 19 under, and that would have made things a little bit more interesting for Tom Kim down the stretch. But we were talking about this off air. I'm full-blown convinced Eric Cole is going to win an event, and it might be one of these next 3 in the fall. It's going to happen for sure.
Yeah, it's a guy that it wasn't that long ago. We were on him for a few different tournaments, at least way longer odds, but you're not sneaking up on anybody with this guy now, because he's just playing himself into that top 5, top 10 discussion. And it used to be like the floor was like, oh, Eric Cole, he's good for a top 40. Eric Cole, top 40. Not anymore, man. This guy, I legit think, like you, he's right there on the cusp of popping through and getting a W here soon. It's just a matter of when, I think, and not if. That's those slight little breaks in a tournament can cost you. It's a difference between 1 stroke and 2 strokes. Sometimes that's a win, so just keep going out there and doing what he's doing. He's going to be there really, really soon. I think we've talked about this too. He's not the longest off the tee, and some of those tournaments can kind of hurt him, especially like I honestly thought Shriners wasn't even the best fit for him.
Same.
But it turned out to be that and even this last week, like Zozo, I know like coming into it with the trend, I thought he'd be good too, but I just couldn't get there with the number wise because I feel like he had to be a little bit even longer this last week. So that's why I kind of like veered away from him. But maybe we just need to stop and just throw that out the window and be like, hey, the guy's hot right now. Let's ride this because he's golfing just really well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's you mentioned kind of the off the tee issues. He's not long. He can get wayward. That's really the big weakness in his game. And TPC Summerlin, that's a course where, yeah, it's wide, but if you get real wayward, you're literally in the desert. I mean, I'll send you a clip. There was one moment on Saturday where JT Poston, I'm not kidding, was in the bushes, dude, like full on in the weeds and like had to chip it out like 6 yards because he had nothing left. So that was my concern about Eric Cole at TPC Summerlin and then at Narashino Country Club last week for the Zozo Championship. It was another course where we've seen really good drivers do well. Tiger Woods, Hideki Matsuyama, Keegan Bradley, guys who are known for that part of their game. So to me, I was literally thinking in my head when going through my picks, I was like, I like Eric Cole this week. I think he'll play well. I don't know if he's going to play well enough to win. And he gave himself a chance once again on Sunday on 2 courses, like you just mentioned, that neither of us really thought were good course fits for him. The irons are just so good. The putting is good. The scrambling is good. Literally all he has to do is just kind of figure out that accuracy off of the tee because he has the ball striking abilities to be a real special player. And I'll tell you what, Joey, following him, he was actually paired up with JT Poston through those first 2 days of the Shriners Children's Open. And I think I talked about this at the BMW Championship as well, but he's literally 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", has to be 150, 160 pounds. And the way that he strikes the ball, dude,
making me feel good right now.
It's gosh damn impressive. Yeah, I'm super high on Eric Cole, man. Really just keeps knocking on that door. And like you mentioned, he keeps giving himself those opportunities. Eventually it's going to happen. He's come so close, but I guess I can kind of transition us into the Zozo Championship where Eric Cole was in that final pairing heading into Sunday, along with Justin Suh and Bo Hostler, all 3 of them looking for their first PGA Tour victories. And it winds up being Colin Morikawa going absolutely bonkers those last 2 days, dude, and snapping that 2+ year win drought, believe it or not, over 2 years.
Right. Crazy.
Morikawa, actually insane with the talent that he has.
And that was the DP World Tour, right? Yeah.
Well,
in November of 2021, I think.
Still 2 years ago, almost was his last technical win. I was saying his last PGA Tour win at the Open Championship. But even his last win in general, it had been a little bit of a struggle for Colin Morikawa. But there were plenty of times where we saw the underlying numbers were looking good, and it just felt like he wasn't able to put it all together, but did show some signs of life late last year. And Saturday and Sunday, his ball striking was crispy, fairway after fairway. Like it seemed like every time that Golf Channel was showing his approach shots, he was hitting everything within 10 feet. And when he has the putter rolling, it's going to be tough to go and beat that guy. He winds up shooting 7 under on the final day to win this one by a touchdown without a field goal. Bo Hostler, Eric Cole both shoot even par. Justin Suh shoots a couple of over. Not really much of a tournament down the stretch, but what were kind of your takeaways and what are your thoughts about Colin Morikawa getting it done finally?
Insane dominance from this guy, and it's not like we should be that surprised at this point because we know what he's capable of, right? We know the underlying metrics to some degree. I mean, me and you were talking off air about just his past season, and I was reading an article on rickrungood.com that kind of really highlighted him very well, I feel like. And so some of the points that I'm going to make here, I was able to kind of take away from that article. But and to your point about the dominance for this tournament too, the last round, he went 12 under in his final 24 holes.
Yeah.
His final 24 holes, you won 12 under. That's half of the holes you are getting a birdie on, basically. That's insane. And just to kind of, describe that. But, I mean, he won the tournament 6 strokes, like you said. I feel like, and I know we were talking about Lee Hodges at the 3M Open you had brought up for being a really large margin of victory. But 6 strokes. We might not see a larger victory deficit by strokes margin this season, just because I feel like that is just such a large number. And it was just largely in part due to his final 24 holes. So insane how he was able to just kind of flick the switch and turn it on. And his approach game is just bonkers. He mentioned, the long stretch that he's went without a victory, but I feel like he's going to crush and this is like one of the main takeaways I had from the article, and it really highlighted some of the thoughts that I've had even from this last season, because there were times where I really wanted to bet him and maybe stayed away, but there were other times where I did bet him, just betting on the talent and what the numbers are showing me and what he's been doing from just a ball striking standpoint. He's crushing right now anything from that 150 to 200 yard bucket from approach shots from the fairway. Majority of his approach shots are coming from there. But he's so accurate off the tee. He led the field in driving accuracy at the Zozo. Absolutely betting on. We're going to talk about the bets here for a second. Got to get into a futures bet that I made. So Augusta is one of those courses that really the driving accuracy, it features Augusta's 71% driving accuracy percentage. 39% of approach shots come from that 150 to 200 yard bucket. We like to bet on golf around here, Jack. This is just a general golf show, but I've already locked in Collin Morikawa 25-1 at the Masters because I feel like he's, coming off this victory this week, just sheer dominance. But like that number could even go lower. It's 20-1 on some books. So if I'm going to bet it later on when we get closer to the Masters, I figure why not lock it in now at 25-1. But yeah, man, what were some of your takeaways from Morikawa's performance this weekend?
Yeah, made a golf course that historically plays tough and played even tougher this year. I mean, Morikawa was the only one who finished double digits under par, which for those of you who are regular listeners or viewers of the show, that's the type of golf that I prefer. I love to see the winds got up to like 40 miles an hour on Friday. It was absolutely crazy. But for Morikawa to go do what he did to finish his round Saturday and then build off of it and go and fire a 64 to win on Sunday, well, the guys in the final group are struggling to finish at even. Undoubtedly impressive. And you mentioned that the 6-shot margin of victory, you don't know if we're going to see a margin of victory as big as that again. It kind of brought me back to Collin Morikawa at the Century Tournament of Champions last year, where if you remember, I believe it was a 6-shot lead for him entering Sunday before he blew up and Jon Rahm ended up chasing him back. And that was kind of like the beginning of this little mini downfall of Collin Morikawa. But just a reminder of how nuclear this guy can go when things are right. It doesn't matter if it's an easy golf course where you can rack up birdies and get to 30 under like Kapalua for the Century Tournament of Champions, or a tough, difficult course like Narashino Country Club. When he's got those irons working, there really isn't anyone better. And if he's able to make the putts, that's a combination that you absolutely have to be worried about. And if Collin Morikawa puts that game together at Augusta National, absolutely can win the Masters. And I think 25-1 is a pretty valid number. So yeah, it feels like he could be potentially on the precipice of coming back and having a little remember who I am type of season this year. Almost kind of similar to, I don't want to compare it to what Jon Rahm did at the early part of last year, but it felt like after not winning the season prior, he won a couple of times in the fall and then really built himself up into winning the Masters early on. And we don't have a Player of the Year award yet, but it feels like it's probably going to be him if I had to guess based on what he did in the early part of last season. I wouldn't be surprised if we seen a run like that out of Collin Morikawa, especially considering the season opens up in California and that's, his home and where he does a lot of his good stuff. So I think this could just be the beginning of a really big year for Mr. Morikawa.
I love it. And I love your point about the combination too of those two things coming together with the putting and with the approach, because the approach is going to be there. I think we feel pretty confident about that at this point, that his game is just there. And that's really been the issue too. Like the putting, when he can putt, he's just not pairing the super good, really good approach numbers with the putting. And it's just not steady enough to kind of carry him with the putting. Like he doesn't have the super great putter where you can just go into and be like, oh, if he gets a hot putter, Taylor Montgomery or like someone like that, where that's gonna carry you to the top of the leaderboard. It's not quite the case. His floor is super high, obviously, but that around the green game paired with and putting paired with the approach is where you're gonna see another major victory or like a streak run here from Morikawa. So yeah, man, I'm excited. I know people. It's not like when you talk about with the elite golfers, like I feel like people know his name and people know that he's very much in discussion, but he's not one of those guys he's not a John Rahm level of a guy that people look out for. He's not Scotty Scheffler to this point, Rory McIlroy. He's just not those dudes. Even Victor Hovland at this point, people that were pushing for him to get his victory thought he was going to get, you included. You're very much one of those people who were like, oh, this is right on the verge for him to really bust out. But yeah, I love that call. The remember me. Yeah, I'm still in that discussion. I'm still really freaking young. So watch what I can do this season. That's kind of what I'm thinking with Morikawa.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I guess we can kind of, well, actually, before we do that, the one thing I kind of wanted to put a bow on all of this, missed out on the Tom Kim victory at the Shriners, 11-1, missed out at Colin Morikawa, 14-1. We've been seeing low numbers winning here so far in the fall. 3 of the 4 tournament winners have been under 20-1. Sahith Theegala also won at 18-1 at that tournament that doesn't really exist. But what I've been kind of realizing in my numbers, Joey, and I did hit one of my winners in the fall last year, being Tony Finau at the Houston Open at 14-1. I think I got a little bit greedy. Starting my card a little bit too far, especially when my numbers on rickrungood.com loved Tom Kim at the Shriners based on how well he had been playing overseas. And he was actually one of the better putters in the last 24 rounds in the field entering that tournament. I was like, man, we know what Tom Kim does tee to green. He matches it up with the putting. That's a scary sight. And I just ended up passing because he was 11-1. And actually Colin Morikawa rated out really well too in the last 24 rounds on, I believe they were bent grass surfaces at Narashino Country Club. Don't quote me on that though, but whatever surface it was, obviously Morikawa rated out well in the ball striking numbers. Even in the last 2 years when he went through that winless drought, he was still popping up as one of the best in the entire world. But he was actually one of the better putters on that surface in the last 24 rounds coming into this one. Why didn't I bet him? Because I thought the number was too low. So we'll see how that kind of transitions into these last 3 fall swing events. I know the fields probably aren't going to be as good, so that means probably not as many golfers with those low numbers, but I think it's just a little bit of a reminder to not be afraid to go to the favorites, even though they're not normally as good as, other favorites are in most tournaments. It's because it's a weaker field. Don't be afraid to go and take those guys. That's kind of what I've learned from the last 2 weeks here.
Definitely. And I think we need those reminders, though, sometimes, because very much so I can get carried away with that, too. So you're not alone in that regard. This past week, I'd say I started a little bit lower. I kind of went, again, I started at 18-1 with Min Woo Lee. And then from there, me and you both were on Keegan, 22-1, who did well. He had a good tournament.
Saturday, he killed me, dude. Do you see what he did on Saturday?
Yeah. It wasn't what we wanted it to be.
He shot 2 under through the first 7 holes and then bogeyed 9, bogeyed 10, bogeyed 11, bogeyed 12. Just like that, he was out of it. And I'm like, dude.
I think you had a screenshot that you put on Twitter about that too, right?
Yeah, I stayed up till like 2 a.m. on Friday night for Saturday's round in Japan, and Keegan absolutely. It was terrible.
All right. Hold on a second. We got to rant for just a second. I know we do this about the coverage a lot, but just real quickly, because I sent you something in the Slack, or we're messaging back. If I don't know if it was a text or if it was whatever it was, pisses me off, dude. Nothing pisses me off more than not being able to watch golf, especially when you have action on it. And for us doing these shows, and you're going to these tournaments. And it doesn't matter about the money involved in it for us, but like people that just want to watch the sport, if you want to learn, and you can't watch, what does Peacock have on in the meantime leading up before 10 o'clock at night? What is on? That's that big of a deal or more important than putting on the golf tournament. Nothing was really that important on a Thursday and a Friday to not put the golf tournament on before 10 p.m. when people have to go to bed and go to work the next day for Friday, even on Thursday or Friday night. Like, okay, I understand it being the late night special for 10 p.m. to 1 or till 2, whatever it was, whatever the time was. It just made no sense to me, Jack. And that's all I wanted to get off my chest because I was pissed off and I'm just like, why am I up waiting for this? I'm about to pass out on my couch just trying to wait for this. And then I might get 1 hour in before I have to go to bed. So
yeah, it is pretty frustrating when you think that on Thursday and Friday before, well, yeah, on I guess Wednesday and Thursday here,
right, my bad.
When we're watching it, people obviously have work the next day, and it's not like these guys were teeing off at 10 or 11. No, most of them were teeing off between like 7 and 9, and then Peacock didn't start the coverage until I think 11 p.m. Eastern time. So literally, you couldn't watch it until 10 o'clock. And like you referenced, what else does Peacock have to show? I mean, come on, you can at least just
2.5 Men or some shit. I don't even know what was on, dude.
Yeah, just another weekly addition to the PGA Tour broadcast continues to blow ass. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, stupid, man. I did want to ask you.
And no shot tracker either makes it even double brutal, so you can't even check on what your guy's doing on the course.
Yeah, we're not going to get the true like trend stats we like to look for from the advanced stats.
I don't think we're going to get them for this tournament or the Bermuda either. I believe is how it works. I believe it's that swing. So whole lot of guessing. How'd you get the job done? Who knows? How'd Colin Morikawa gain 16 strokes last week? No idea, but he gained 16.
Well, we're starting all over after 3 weeks from now, basically, is what you're telling me.
Basically.
Season starts all anew. The fall swing means absolutely nothing, but hopefully we hit an outright just out of sheer luck.
Yeah, that's honestly might be what it takes.
I did want to ask you though, like looking at who actually ended up on the leaderboard, and of course we don't have the advanced strokes gained numbers and things like that, but who kind of stuck out to you that found his way to the top, and maybe his game is kind of coming around to a point where you're like, wow, I really like the way this dude looks now, outside of Eric Cole, and then maybe who's somebody who maybe let you down here at the good old Zozo.
I would say Keegan, quite honestly, let me down the most, even though he was like my one guy that was in the mix. For what he did on Saturday was just absolutely pathetic, especially after having a pretty good round on Friday when the winds were absolutely gusting. I think he was 3 shots off the lead going into Saturday, and a lot of those guys were crumbling as they hit the back 9, but Keegan also was crumbling as he hit the back 9 as well. So he was probably the one that ended up disappointing me the most. Adam Svensson played actually like balls until the final round. Also who disappointed me, my boy Cameron Champ, who shot a nice, I think 4 or 5 over on the final day to finish 59th for me in the one and done. So that's always lovely. You got the first victory of your season in the one and done with Cam Davis finishing 12th. I had Eric Cole at the Shriners where he finished 3rd. But the guys that
I have at Shriners, I got killed. I know you killed me.
You had Sir Matthew Neesmith.
That's right.
42nd.
Yeah, not good.
But the guys that I think we talked about, Eric Cole, obviously, guys that could be on the precipice of something special later on, even this fall or early on throughout next season. I think Beau Hossler is really showing some good versions of himself. I don't know if I'm ready to jump aboard, if he's playing in Cabo San Lucas next week. I don't know if I'm going to jump aboard to like 18 or 20 to 1 Beau Hossler necessarily, but the irons are really, that's always been the thing that's kind of plagued him the most. He's a really good putter and he can bomb it off the tee, and was a very prestigious collegiate golfer with the University of Texas, a Haskins Award winner, a guy that a lot of people thought were going to have a very bright career ahead of him. And I believe he made the cut at the US Open as a 17-year-old. A lot of good flashes for Beau at a young age, but it's been a little bit of a grind for him to kind of find that consistency level on the PGA Tour. But we've seen it so far here in the fall, and just giving himself a lot of opportunities. I do still get that worry about him on Sunday. That's really always been my concern about Beau Hossler. It feels like whenever it matters more, he's just not able to get the most out of himself. But at the same time, in the weaker fall swing fields, I could see him getting the job done to pull through for that first victory. So he was someone that I was pretty impressed with at the Shriners and at the Zozo. I think Justin Suh is kind of like a mini Bo Hostler, kind of in the same way, where he does a lot of things well and feels like he's the king of Thursdays and Fridays. And then for whatever reason, Sundays just have not been kind to him. But a guy who can get absolutely red hot with the putter, a good ball striker as well. So those are kind of the two guys I think were my like kind of bright spots from these 2 weeks and guys that I could be looking ahead towards. I was kind of thinking as well, Akshay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think it's still a little too early for him to be a winner, but seeing him in person too, man, there was this shot at TPC Summerlin where it was the par 5 ninth and he probably had 270 in and he was in the bunker and he just whipped out his hybrid and just smacked it out of the bunker. And it was just one of those moments where like, yeah, me and you are just not the same. The fact that he could just pull hybrid out of the bunker and just clean pick it like 250 yards. His ball striking is undeniable. The putter is still what you have to worry about with him, but he's shown some flashes here in the fall as well. Like I said, I think more of just a reminder of how bright his future is, maybe not necessarily to get on board with him in the betting market yet, but him and Luddy F. Baby, those are two young guys that have shown a lot of talent so far this fall. And I think those are going to be two guys who are going to be much more common names in a couple of years. Luddy already kind of is. But those are two guys who I think are going to be having big futures on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, and I'll throw in another name too that was actually the same odds that I bet. So I bet both Akshay Bhatia and then this guy that I'm going to bring up. Bo, we had kind of talked on air here a week or two ago about not being able to buy in about that, whether it's late in tournaments or like, I think we said Bo knows nothing or something like that. Bo doesn't know golf.
Bo knows Sunday scaries.
Bo knows Sunday scaries. That's what it was. Yeah. And, it's good to see him kind of getting into a groove here, and maybe it's something that me and you both need to, evaluate a little closer and kind of look at moving forward. But the guy I want to bring up is, I don't know how to say his first name. I always forget. Is it Ryo Hisatsune?
Hisatsune.
Hisatsune. So I knew I was going to screw that up too. But 90-1 as well with Akshay Bhatia. I really liked his game. Like, he was making some putts. He's got some tools that he can definitely work with. Didn't make enough putts, but I think that this kid moving forward might be someone we need to watch a little bit closer. I really liked the fit here moving into this tournament, but I think he's coming off of a victory too, very recently. So that's another reason why trending in that direction. And Cam Davis is another guy who I know he was more of a favorite coming in, but Cam Davis is really, really trending well right now. And sometimes I feel like Cam is someone who's people get a little over aggressive with him in the betting market. I don't know if that's the case anymore, because he's starting to show me that he seems like he's an Eric Cole type of guy away from like a victory. Like, I think it's coming soon. So that's what I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, I don't think that's far off. Cam Davis, kind of a weird year for him last year, where he was dealing with an illness in the early part of the season, and that prevented him from playing his best golf and kind of not really getting into a groove throughout the course of the season. But a lot of good flashes and a couple of good finishes here early on in the season. To go back to Hisatsune, he was coming off a victory. He won the French Open, actually, and also finished T13 at the Omega European Masters, T14 at the Czech Masters, which Luddy F. Baby won, finished T10 at the Barracuda in July, also finished T8 at the Made in Himmerland Championship that Højgaard won. So a lot of good high-end finishes, and I believe he's ranked inside the top 25 on the DP World Tour as well. So yeah, potentially a name to keep an eye out for. Still only 21 years old, I believe, as well.
Yeah, he's a young cat. I mean, just kind of looking at some of his numbers here, reasons why I was on him. I believe his tee to green game was doing really well, and I'm sure it was the case this last week, but adjusted course fit rankings for the past 24 rounds that were in the last field, it was 1 Cam Davis, 2 Colin Morikawa, 3 Akshay Bhatia, 4 Adam Scott, 5 Rio Hizat and then 6 JJ Spawn, who I believe did you bet Spawn?
I've never bet JJ Spawn in my life.
Okay. I don't know where that came from. So anyways, some reasons there to like this kid, I think, moving forward, maybe going in the right direction and being a young kid. Any other kind of takeaways though that you had from this? Yeah, go ahead.
I got one more. I completely forgot. And I think we both bet him at this tournament last year. Satoshi Kodaira.
Yeah, we did.
Dude, I wanted to bet him. Let me go and pull up. I have Rick Rungood pulled up right here, and I'll tell you the reason why I didn't bet him. But I almost wound up kicking myself because FanDuel was listing him 750 to 1, dude. And he was like 2 strokes off maybe even 1 stroke off the lead going into the final day. Ended up finishing T12, so wound up being a losing bet. But the reason that I was off of him was because he had lost at least 2 strokes on approach in 4 of his last 5 starts and hadn't had a top 20 finish since the Zozo Championship legit last year. Like his ball striking and his putting were both in just absolute shambles. And that's why they listed him at 750 to 1 in a 78-man field. But I was looking at it. I'm like, man, $10 is going to win me some fat cash if Kodaira wins. Ended up not passing on it and was like sweating him a little bit on Saturday night. I'm like, one of those moments where you're like, it's almost similar to when you were on a guy last week and then he goes on and is in the mix this week. You're like kind of rooting against him because you're like, fuck, I don't want to be a week too early on that guy. That was like me with Kodaira this past week. I was like quietly, even though he's like a little bit my boy, I was kind of rooting against him on Sunday because that would have been a real big kick to the balls, not coming away with like 7,500 had he won.
That was your Wyndham Clark from last year.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started. That stunk. When I used Wyndham Clark as my one and done in Mexico, and then he goes and wins the fucking Wells Fargo.
Yeah, that's brutal, man. Kodaira, no, man, I get why, like even the reasons you said that he was 750 to 1, but it seems a little disrespectful for what he could have been, and he was really good. I mean, 2 over on Sunday, I think that's what killed him.
Yeah.
Even that though, like he basically cost himself. If he just goes par, he's top 10. He's inside the top 10. So kind of sucks for Mr. Kodaira. We'll see more of him though. We'll get some long shot opportunities. I don't know how risky you're feeling with like I feel like we're gonna get those 300 to 1s though on some of these other tournaments coming up. And
yeah, he'll play in the rest of the fall, I believe, because he's trying to get his way into those signature events, which is basically like the purpose of this fall swing, So I think he should be there these next 3 weeks. We'll see.
Do you want to get into some of those comments though about some of the changes with the top 70 guys and 126 to 200 in the FedEx Cup rankings now, with the partnership with the DP World Tour being able to go over there and play? And I guess Jimmy Walker has like understandably so, has a little bit of a gripe there because I believe he finished 124. So I don't know. Did you have anything on that you want to talk about, or any thoughts there? I don't know.
I guess I just thought it's just I don't know how that's going to be something that's sustainable when you're constantly like picking away the best talent that wants to. I guess no one really. There are some people, of course, but the goal for most folks is to make it to the PGA Tour, which I understand, and they want to kind of give that a pathway. But at the same time, it feels like it's only going to continue to hurt the DP World Tour, and then you're sending like Americans to the deep. It feels like it's all. It feels like it's just not a sustainable method, I guess, is the biggest thing that I've had with it. And there have just been some weird things going on with the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour's relationship, where it's been more so, it kind of seems like it's just been a bigger leverage point for the PGA Tour to kind of have against Live Golf. So that was just kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know if it's like a sustainable product, but I get what they're trying to do. I just don't know if that's going to end up working out how they envision it in the long term, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get that. I feel like it's nice that these golfers are going to be able to golf regularly. But at the same time, aren't they're limiting them to like 5 American golfers, right? Or did I read that wrong?
Only 5 players. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, at the same time, even some of those players that you're choosing from, like it's very selective in who will get a chance to even golf a little bit more while not golfing PGA Tour. So I don't know. I guess I'll kind of have to wait and see how this plays out entirely and see kind of what the golfer reaction is moving forward for some of these guys. But I don't know if it's not a long-term solution to me either. I don't think.
Yeah.
Not what they're going for.
No, I think, again, it's just one of those situations where they're trying to give that, I think, is almost like an avenue or a path or a lifeline. But when you're only limiting it to 5 guys, I don't know. It's weird. That feels like the DP World Tour is just almost kind of getting diminished at this point. And it feels more so now that it's like a minor league type of situation, more so than ever, where instead of being like considered the second best tour in the world, it's now more of like a hand-me-down for the PGA Tour almost in a way.
Yeah, like a little prospect pool. But you're also seeing a lot of vets over there.
Right.
Like, so the prospect pool is even weird. Like, it's like Corn Ferry Tour for old people, or like, I don't know how to put that, but it's not the senior. It's not the, oh God, what's the old man's league?
The Champions Tour.
The Champions Tour. Thank you. It's not the Champions Tour, but it's like the Corn Ferry Champions. Like,
right.
In a weird way. Like Ernie Els just needs to make an appearance pretty soon over there. Love Ernie Els, by the way. Yeah, man, I don't know. Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap this up and maybe look ahead a little bit to next week? Or we didn't talk Ryder Cup at all. I mean, we didn't, not that we needed to, but I know there was a kind of a little talking point. We did have an article out there on ontapsportsnet.com. I believe, Jack, did you write that article?
I did.
So go check that out at ontapsportsnet.com. One of our boys, the Glove, Gary Payton's cousin, Lucas Glover, had some comments about the Ryder Cup and Team USA and maybe some locker room not quite in sync there for the Ryder Cup. And we kind of have an idea of who he might have been alluding to and situations at hand. But do you have any thoughts about that, Jack, in the article that you wrote?
Yeah. There have been a lot of just interesting kind of reports back and forth since the Ryder Cup wrapped up. Obviously, the big storyline that came from that was the report that came from Sky Sports on Patrick Cantlay electing not to wear a hat in protest because the PGA of America does not pay players to participate in the Ryder Cup. And then the United States obviously kind of laughed at that, and Cantlay and all his teammates went on to deny it. And they even, as I mentioned in the article, used it as a little bit of their rallying cry on Saturday to give themselves some life heading into Sunday singles. But we've heard like mixed reports ever since then of like whether or not that was true or wasn't. And maybe we never truly will know, but Lucas Glover was kind of the first player who wasn't involved in the Ryder Cup to really speak out about it. And he was on Sirius XM Radio's The Players Show earlier this week and said that he had someone who was on site and, quote, in the fight at the Ryder Cup this year tell him that the locker room was splintered, was the way that he put it. And, that's obviously sad to hear. I feel like, though, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like the situation that probably happened, I fully believe that Patrick Cantlay was upset that he wasn't getting paid for the Ryder Cup. I think that's 100% true. Now, do I think that he was making a big old stink about it the week of the Ryder Cup and was, going and screaming about it in the locker room and going up to other guys and being like, this is bullshit? No, I don't think that was the case either. And I highly doubt the United States locker room was actually like fractured as a whole. At least in my mind, I feel like there were probably people who were upset with Patrick Cantlay about the fact that he cared that much about getting paid for the Ryder Cup. I feel like that was probably like the splintering was, maybe, considering Xander and Cantlay are known as boys, and then there's JT and Ricky and Spieth, and it could have been anyone, but I'm sure that probably rubbed some guys the wrong way. But I don't think it was like a true detriment to the United States. And also based on how they were reacting, I think they were having like fun with it out there on the course, because it was probably a little bit true, but probably, again, not as big of a deal as people were making it out to be. But it was interesting to hear for sure. And again, we'll probably never know the severity of what the United States locker room was truly like, but definitely is going to add fuel to the fire in terms of the United States and their loss. That's obviously going to be a main talking point. Was whenever you lose, it's going to bring out what went wrong. And this is going to be the thing that always stands on everybody's minds, but also it's adding fuel to the fire of Patrick Cantlay just being the new villain on the PGA Tour. And in an age where it feels like all the villains have gone to live golf, kind of the PGA Tour needs a little bit of a villain. So I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon with Patrick Cantlay, but I do firmly believe that Patrick Cantlay, not only based on this situation, but based on other reports, and Alan Shipnuck's had a book come out about this whole thing. Not that, but just the Live Golf and PGA Tour situation recently. And there were people, unnamed sources, who made comments about Cantlay saying that he's always involved in the business side of things and is just kind of drilled that way. So I do believe it's true, but probably not as big of a situation as like the public was making it out to be, in my opinion.
100%. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I think that it's the least suspecting villain, though.
Right.
Like, looking at Cantlay, like I wouldn't have, just the way that he goes about his business, you wouldn't think that he would be a villain. But people, one, can't stand how long he takes when he's golfing. So there's that baked into it. And then when you make comments like this, especially for the golfers, I know some of the golfers, I don't know them personally, but you could tell that they really care a lot about the tradition, especially the Ryder Cup tradition. So, you're talking about not getting paid to do this. Now, was it just like a backhanded comment of like, we should be getting paid? And then, was it actually something that he threw a fit about? Probably not. Like, I don't see that as like, oh, we're not getting paid, I'm not going to try. Like, I don't think there was any of that. But if you're Lucas Glover or someone like that, for example, that's totally something that I'd be like, you know what? This guy doesn't even want to be there. Like, I would give my left nut there for free. Like, Lucas Glover obviously is somebody who really wanted to be there. So was Keegan Bradley. Like, guys like that, and they hear comments about, you not getting paid to play. When you get paid a shit ton of money to go to all these different tournaments regularly anyways, I could totally understand how that would rub people the wrong way, especially the ones that weren't there. So whether they took it as like something that it really was inside the locker room, or they took it and kind of ran with it to their own kind of perspective, we'll actually never know, but unless somebody makes more comments moving forward. But I do think that a little bit it's blown out of proportion, but I'm fine with it though at the same time. Like, I want to see Lucas Glover face off against Patrick Cantlay, on one of these events, and just be paired together, or him and Keegan Bradley, like, the three of them kind of paired up together with Cantlay. I think that'd be a lot of fun moving forward. So it just gives us a little bit more drama and action that we might be looking for here.
Yeah, I could definitely see where the frustration comes from for Lucas Glover, a guy who's played in a couple of President's Cups and won a major in 2010, but hasn't played in a Ryder Cup in his career. And a guy like Keegan Bradley, who played in Ryder Cups early on, but hasn't been able to get back, and has, a career type of year this past season where he wins twice, including a designated event as well, and winds up not making the team. And to hear that, in an event like that where Patrick Cantlay, it just feels like it could have been something that just he could have discussed it or brought it up after the tournament. And I'm sure guys hearing that, and Patrick Cantlay especially too, being on this year's team where it was kind of just a different United States roster based on the buildup. And Patrick Cantlay was supposed to be, one of the anchors, him and Xander, like we were counting on them to do big things, a great team together throughout their careers. And that was just kind of the narrative around Cantlay. It was certainly disappointing to hear that.
Well, let me ask you this. So you said maybe he should bring it up after. Let me ask you this: if he golfs bad, and then come to find out later he brings up a comment about well we should be getting paid, does that add in any like I don't know on your end of things? Just looking at it as like, was that why he played bad? Like, would you have thought of it any differently if he would have made those comments afterwards? Because like, oh, he's just out there like I don't give a shit. Whereas like if he made it beforehand or like during kind of that week, like is it a different type of feel? You know, like would you take that perspective from it or like thought behind it?
Honestly, probably not, because again, even if he's frustrated, like just the fact that he's out there with 11 other guys who are trying to win and you're representing your country, I don't think like that would have been in him, even if he was like utterly, truly 100% like melting down that he wasn't get paid, which again, I don't expect to be the case. No. And especially knowing that Patrick Cantlay is one of the players on the PGA Tour Players Board as well. Like, this is something that he's always been involved in. We're just kind of seeing it in the limelight a little bit more prevalently. And I think, I guess the timing of it probably would have been fucked one way or another. But again, at the end of the day, I guess like who fucking cares if you're getting paid for the Ryder Cup? Again, when you're Patrick Cantlay, one of the top 10 players in the world consistently for the last couple of years, Live Golf, if anything, I know you're probably pissed because you turned down money to go to them, but you're still going to wind up making good money. It's just how it happened one way or another. It's disappointing on a week like that. It became the storyline for the United States.
Yeah, I agree. It really shouldn't have been any part of the storyline, but
yeah,
here we are even talking about it 3 weeks from then, 4 weeks from then. My time's probably way off. I don't remember exactly when that took place. I know it wasn't that long ago.
Pretty close.
So, close to that. But yeah, Jack, next week we are, remind me again, because you literally just told me we're in Mexico, right?
Cabo San Lucas Worldwide Technology Championship. A new course this year, though, because the tournament had been played at Mayakoba the last handful of years, but that was a course that was designed by Greg Norman and is actually on the live schedule this year. So the PGA Tour is going to be shifting this tournament to Cabo San Lucas this year at El Diamante, which is actually the first course that Tiger Woods actually ever designed, believe it or not. So it should be fun to see that in full swing, but not going to have any experience on that course. So going to be taking a little bit of a stab with the bets next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I feel like we're going to be doing a lot of guesswork. I'm going to be relying on some expert models and kind of inputting maybe a little bit of tweakage here and there. I mean, it's not something that we don't do pretty regularly anyways, but definitely a lot of guesswork here moving forward for next week.
Yeah.
Question. We got Halloween Tuesday, so we're going to figure this out, but I'm trying to coordinate like best time for a show. Are we interrupting the trick-or-treaters for a Golf on Tap show, or are we thinking maybe the first?
That's a good question. How many trick-or-treaters you usually get at your crib?
Like none.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too.
But I will say, when they come here and I forget, like, because, okay, so 1 year, yeah, real side story real quick. So 1 year, we had one group that showed up here, and I completely, like, forgot to get candy. How do you forget to get Halloween candy leading up to it? So stupid. So anyways, I don't think I was even expecting to be here.
Boo this man! Boo!
I'm such an asshole. So I think it was like sparkling. Do we have sparkling pop or something? I hate sparkling water. I hate sparkling pop. I don't even know. It was Kayla that bought it. So those like Frescas or what are those things? I think it's sparkling pop, right?
I don't know what you're talking. Please tell me it wasn't fucking LaCroix. Tell me you didn't give out LaCroix.
Dude, I hate LaCroix. It's LaCroix to me. I call it LaCroix.
You didn't give out LaCroix to kids, though, did you? Because I would have fucking thrown that at your garage if I was like 13 years old and someone.
I would have thrown it at my own garage because I hate it so much.
Yeah, that would have been a crime. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Are they the fizzies or the bubbly? I don't know. I'm trying to.
It was one of those like Bublé things, like the Michael Bublé pops. I fucking hate them. So anyways, I had nothing else, and I was like scrambling around like, fuck, do I even have like snacks? I have no snacks in the house. We haven't even went to the grocery store this week. So I'm pretty sure I gave him, it was like one group, and it actually turned out to be like a buddy of mine that lived down the street. So he wasn't upset or anything. And he was like, dude, I will come to your house in like a week and just bring them candy. And he's like, all right, that's cool. He's like, you're good, man. And I'm like, dude, I completely fucking forgot. Like, no one comes here on Halloween. So,
That's great.
anyways, yeah. So, what were you saying? You got trick or treaters. You don't have trick or treaters.
I don't give very many, but we'll play it by ear for now. I'm not exactly sure what we're gonna do, but I will be messaging you within the next week. But we will have a show one way or the other.
Works for me. Yeah, we're going to be back next week, some point, one way or another, one day or the other. Jack, anything else you want to mention before we kind of wrap this puppy up?
That's about it. It's been a little bit of a cold fall after I won 3 of 7 during the fall swing last year. So we got 3 more to go before the end of the calendar year. And hopefully we can finish that off strong and get into the positive for this FedEx Cup fall.
I feel confident we will do it. Tiger will be on our side. That course will speak to us some way.
Yes.
One way or another, Tiger is going to speak to us. So let's get it next week. Can we get an outright? I think we can. Thomas the Engine just came out of me, I think. Anyways, we are Golf on Tap. Go ahead and check out all the articles at ontapsportsnet.com. Check out all the social media posts that Jack is regularly posting the content for on Twitter or the X machine at ontapgolf. You can follow Jack at Jack Bushman 2. You can follow me at Joey Knows Nothing. Shout out to our sponsors, Bet Rivers. Enter the promo code ONTAP for an up to $250 deposit match. That's promo code ONTAP for an up to $250 deposit match at Bet Rivers. Shout out to all of our shows. Chicago sports-related content. We have so many different shows. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs. Soon we'll have a show for that. Bets. Me and B-Down will have a show coming up here probably end of the week. Not quite sure. Golf, of course. There is that one team that I always forget, Jack.
The White Sox.
That's what it is. White Sox. Thank you. So go ahead and check out those guys. Sox on Tap guys do a great job over there too. So with that said, like I said, we are Golf on Tap. Crack them, lock them, fuck them, and we're out. Oh, I like that Hawks cup right there. I didn't notice that.